Welcome back. Retired British Army officer Colonel Guy Deacon has been traveling the African continent since November 2019, raising awareness about the Parkinson's disease as well as highlighting the challenges posed by the disease. Now, Deacon, who is currently living with Parkinson's disease himself, is also filming a documentary throughout his journey about his encounters with other Parkinson's disease patients on the African continent. Now, Deacon is currently in Namibia on the same mission, and he now joins us in studio with more on this. Good morning, Colonel, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me with you.
All right. Now, for those that do not know what Parkinson's is, what is Parkinson's disease?
Parkinson's is a straightforward neurological disease caused by the lack of dopamine in the body. And it means that the muscles don't get the signals from the nervous system that they require, and they don't work as you expect. So in some cases, people shake a lot. In other cases, such as me, I'm very static and I can't move very fast. Everything's very slow. And it's all because we don't have enough dopamine that's produced in the back of the brain to make sure that the signals get to the right muscles and act accordingly. And that's really what Parkinson's is. But it's a bit more complicated than that, obviously. But from a layman's term, and my own understanding, that's kind of what I live with.
All right. Now, you've embarked on this awareness journey since 2019. Talk to us about some of the places that you've been.
I've followed a route down the west coast of Africa, hugging the Atlantic Ocean. And it's a part of Africa, or a route that we don't really know in the UK very well. And there's certainly countries I don't know. And it's all the way from Morocco round through Senegal to Nigeria, and then down the coast through Angola to Namibia, and then ultimately South Africa. All of which are splendid countries that, as I say, are little known in the UK. So making the documentary will bring these countries to people's homes and show them the diversity of this extraordinary continent.
All right. Now, what do you plan on achieving with this journey that you're on?
I've got two goals, really, in addition to just showing people what a wonderful part of the world it is. First is to demonstrate that if you've got Parkinson's, as I have, it is still possible to do what you want to do if you try hard enough, and to live your dreams and to achieve things that you didn't think were possible. I mean, it's very difficult. And part of the film will show me coping with the realities of Parkinson's and trying to do the routine business of travelling, whether it be going to embassies for visas, whether it be getting money or whatever. And that's part of the story about me and the detail of Parkinson's. But the other really important part is to bring to people's attention the fact that there are people in Africa with Parkinson's as well. Yeah. It's not just the preserve of the Europeans and the Americans and all that. It's everywhere. And people don't know enough about it. And by raising awareness, I'm trying to start a conversation that people just know more about it and can recognise it and can get help, not necessarily medical help, but just from their families, so they understand what people are going through, because it's a pretty miserable thing, to be honest.
All right. Now, throughout your journey, are people actually keen on listening and like learning about Parkinson's disease?
I've been quite surprised how interested people are. And there have been a number of cases people have come up to me and said, that explains it. But I had an aunt or a grandmother or a grandfather who had those symptoms, and perhaps he had Parkinson's. Now, I can't tell because I'm not a neurologist, but it's opened people's eyes up to something that it's not the biggest problem, because there are other problems, of course, such as malaria and everything else, and Ebola, whatever you choose to have. But it's for those people who've got it, to recognise that it's a condition that's not their fault, and that there is medication available, and that they understand what they're going through, is a big step, because it's for the individual who's got it, it's as bad as anything you can have.
Right. Now, your journey brought you all the way to Namibia. What parts of Namibia do you plan on visiting, and how long will you be in Namibia for?
I've been here for about 10 days, well, not quite 10 days so far. Okay. And I travelled from Angola. And I've really seen as much as I possibly can, so Toshi Game Reserve and all the rest of it. And I've been to the coast. I couldn't go down the Skeleton Coast entirely, because my poor old Volkswagen camper van is getting a bit tired now. But I'm going to travel south down to Namib Desert and see all the sights that everybody said must see, and I can't wait.
All right. Now, talk to us about some of your encounters that you had with people suffering from Parkinson's disease.
I've been blessed on the one hand by meeting some extraordinary people who endure this condition with very little help, because the help's not available, very little understanding, because there are not many neurologists in this continent, and just getting by with the help of their families. And it's very humbling to meet these people who cope very well with this awful condition based upon the love and support of their families. And that's the most compelling thing for me. But there are groups of people who have set up hubs, if you like, of information who can help those who've got Parkinson's and advise them on what they can do and teach them about exercises to make their muscles work better.
Oh, there are exercises that actually help?
Yes, and there are things you can do just to make sure your body keeps working as well as it can, and physiotherapy and all these sort of things which don't necessarily cost much money, and just by making people aware of what you can do. And Parkinson's Africa is one charity that I'm supporting in just raising awareness and helping people to make decisions about their own condition and knowing what they can do and what they can't. Because I can't make sure that we have lots more drugs, and I can't affect policy to make sure that it's treated as a serious disease, because there are many other problems as well. But I can raise awareness and get the discussion going and make people aware of those people around them and what they're really going through, because people don't often talk about the condition from a personal point of view, because it's a...
Are people afraid of having this conversation?
I don't think they're afraid of having the conversation. I think they're actually quite interested in it, because it's a conversation people don't normally have.
Yeah.
Because people with Parkinson's tend to back away and tend to hide in their shell because the symptoms are very demeaning. And I don't shake, I'm very static, but I sometimes dribble, I sometimes stutter, I mumble a lot, I feel uncomfortable with more than one person. Talking to 2 or 3 people becomes difficult. And so all these things mean that you tend not to go and talk about the condition, and we tend to back away and wish it wasn't there, which of course doesn't help. But that's the problem. And in some cases, of course, there are all sorts of associations with it which are far worse. And because there's no cause for it, and there's no cure currently, people sort of associate it with witchcraft and black magic, all these things, and there's a dreadful stigma attached to it, which means some people have a very lonely time, which is the worst thing about it, actually. There's the abandonment of some people, not necessarily in Namibia, but in some parts of Africa. People are very, very wary of it and think it's contagious and think you can catch it, and of course you can't. And these people need as much love as anybody else, need it more than other people, in fact.
All right. Now, is there a certain diet that people with Parkinson's disease are supposed to be on?
There are things you can do to adjust your diet which help. I'm not a nutritional expert, but beans and all that sort of stuff and certain vegetables are very good for you. I don't tend to monitor my diet. The reality is, just eating is quite difficult, because I can't use a knife and fork very well, and I make a real mess when I eat, and I don't feel very grown up sometimes. But eating just sensibly and healthily is really important, rather than easy food. Eating proper food makes a big difference.
All right. Now, Colonel, where is your next stop from here?
Well, I'm nearly at the end of my journey, and I'm going to Cape Town, which is that's where I will complete, and that won't take very long. And it's going to be an extraordinary sort of feeling, because of course I've been travelling now, not in fact for 3 years, because of course I was back in the UK for COVID, but since November 2019, my mind has been on this trip and what I'll be doing, and my wheels turning and travelling south all throughout that time, and it's all going to come to a halt in Cape Town, and that's going to leave me in a very strange position. We'll have plenty of work to do because we're making this film, and hopefully I'll be writing a book which is going to challenge me, and I'll do some talks and things. But whilst I'm looking forward to seeing my family again and friends and everybody in the UK, it'll be very strange without this sort of sense of purpose, without this sense of travel. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to cope with that, to be honest. I will have to think of something else to do very, very urgently.
You know, you can always prolong your journey.
I would love to prolong my journey, but I've been away for a long time, and I miss my family. Yeah. So I'm very keen to see them.
All right.
But and the reality is that it gets more difficult as well. Every day is a bit more difficult than it was the day before. So I know that when I get back to England, all the things that I could do before I left, whether it be moving furniture, whether it be doing things around the house, will be that much more difficult. And that's a bit daunting. When you change the scene and you do the same things you did before, you suddenly realise, I can't do it. And that'll take a bit of getting used to. And And I fear that actually, it'll be a step change in my condition.
Right.
So that's a worry for me.
All right. Now, Colonel, before we let you go, any final remarks to our viewers watching at home?
Yes, there's nothing good about Parkinson's. There are lots of people doing lots of work to try and find a cure around the world, and there will be a cure one day. But what people really want is understanding, so people understand what they've got, people understand what members of their family have got, and they need to be looked after and cared for like anybody else. And there's no clever magic about it. It's a straightforward neurological condition that just needs to be understood by more people and talked about. There's no stigma, there's no disgrace. It's not my fault I've got it, it's not their fault they've got it. If we understand that, then we're 3/4 of the way there.
Right. Now, Colonel, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and we wish you all the best with your journey.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.
Right. That was Colonel Guy Deacon talking to us about his journey on raising awareness about Parkinson's disease. And he is currently in Namibia for a few days, and he'll be moving on to Cape Town to continue spreading the awareness